All right, it is 11:02, and I think we can go ahead and get things started here. So, thank you all again for joining the meeting today. Um, the subject of our meeting is is a training for the Rural County Transportation Program, or RCTP, grant program. My name is Dan Fox. I'm a senior planner with ECIA. I think we also have Dylan Mickles from ECIA on the call here today. He's going to be helping out with this program this year. And then Jack Studier, who is not on the call, he'll be helping out with the program as well on our end. So we'll have all three of our contact information at the end of this presentation if you need to get a hold of us for any reason about the program. So the purpose of our training here today is to provide an overview of the RCTP program first. We're going to go over the evaluation criteria for the program. That there have been some updates made to that criteria, so we'll get into that as well. We also want to demonstrate the online questionnaire, and then at the end we'll have time for questions and discussion. So as we go through the presentation here, I'll be leading us through here, but if you do have any questions that come up as we're going through, feel free to stop me. You can also write questions in the chat as well, and I'll answer those as soon as I can. So the description of the RCTP program, it is a county-led grant program that provides funding to small cities to help implement non-federal aid transportation projects. Clinton, Delaware, Dubuque, and Jackson counties have all created RCTP programs. Of those four, Clinton, Dubuque, and Jackson have approved $70,000 for fiscal year 2026 RCTP program, and Delaware County has slightly more, $72,000 for their program for this fiscal year. That extra $2,000 is just money that was carried over from last year's program because the total grants that were applied for only added up to $68,000. So there was that extra $2,000 that was carried over. So the counties that participate in the program distribute RCTP funds to cities through a competitive application process. And the counties have agreements with RPA staff or ECIA staff, which includes myself, Dylan, and Jack, to help administer the program and help cities with writing the applications. Now this grant program is kind of unique. It's a little different from some other grant programs where the cities will submit information. Cities looking to apply will submit information to us, and then we help the cities through the application process and help them with writing the actual applications. So a little more about the program. So the maximum annual RCTP award to a city is $25,000. RCTP will fund a maximum of 80% of the total project cost, and the city must secure funding for a minimum of 20% of the project cost. So an example here, if the city was requesting $25,000 from the RCTP program, they would have to have $6,250 for local match, and that making the total project cost $31,250. So you can apply for less than $25,000. You just have to make sure that local match equals at least 20% of the total project cost. If you do submit an application that has less than that, we will kind of follow up with you and have you make some adjustments to your project budget to make sure that we are meeting that 20% requirement. So eligible projects, the types of projects that are typically applied for through the RCTP program and are eligible to apply are transportation-related construction projects. So some of the types of projects include flashing warning lights, traffic signals, street lighting projects, road reconstruction projects, resurfacing, patching, crack filling projects, safety improvement projects, including intersections improvements, existing sidewalks, ADA ramp improvements, crosswalks, and then there are also just a category for other types of projects. So if you are thinking of applying for a project that doesn't fit into one of the those first 7 categories, we recommend that you contact your county engineer or contact us, and we'll bring in the county engineer and just verify that your project is eligible to apply for this under the other category. So we recommend doing that as early as possible so that we can just verify that it's eligible and that you can go ahead and submit that application. So the application. So to apply for an RCTP grant, cities must complete the following items before the application deadline. So you need to commit or complete the online questionnaire, which we will take a look at a little bit later. You also need to submit a signed authorization to apply resolution, submit a priority project resolution, submit a cost estimate, and submit photos showing the existing condition of the project site. All that needs to be done by the application deadline, which is 5 p.m. on March 20th of 2024. So we'll get into some of these things a little bit later, and we'll describe some more of these required items in detail as we move forward in the presentation. The online questionnaire. So the questionnaire is available on our website at the link that's listed there on the page. In addition to the questionnaire, application guidelines and other information about the program is available on the same page. So cities should submit all of their required application documents and photos through the online questionnaire, and then also any supporting materials such as letters of support should be submitted through the questionnaire as well. So the timeline for the application process and approval. Starting in January, or typically we do this in January, it's a little bit later this year because of some of the changes we went through with the scoring criteria. But in February now, we are conducting the city's training workshop, which we're doing right now. Then between February and March 20th, cities are working on completing the online questionnaire and submitting the resolutions, authorization to apply, and priority project resolution. We'll also be submitting cost estimate photos, all those requirement materials by 5 p.m. on March 20th. That should be 2025 there on the slide. Then in February and April, RPA staff will be working through all the information that's been submitted and working with the cities to write those applications. In April and May, the RPA staff will be forming the ranking committee and assisting the committee with ranking the applications. By the first week of June, we plan on having all this information submitted to the County Board of Supervisors for final approval of the project awards. By the end of June, we want to have funding agreements. Those are 28E agreements in place between the county and the cities receiving funding. And then prior to August 1st, we'll be updating our RPA balance sheets. So we like to try to get everything wrapped up before the end of June, get all those funding agreements in place and have everything ready to go so that cities can receive their grant awards as soon as the fiscal year starts in July. So that's kind of what our timeline is for the overall process, and that's what we'll be working towards with this year's round of applications. So the evaluation criteria. So as I mentioned earlier, we did make some updates to the evaluation criteria, and I think we've been sending communications out to the cities that are eligible to apply for RCTP grants as we've been doing this to collect their feedback and input on the scoring criteria. But basically, the major changes that were made to the scoring criteria was that there was previously 5 categories that we were looking at to evaluate the projects. All of each category was worth 20 points, which added together created a total score of 100 points. One of those categories was eliminated through this recent change, and that was the scoring criteria for local match. Now, as we've said, there is still a local match requirement for this program. You still need to have that minimum 20% local match as part of your application. But previously, there were points that were awarded for local match percentages above 20%, and that criteria has been removed, and that's no longer the case. So all you have to do now is just make sure that you have a minimum of 20% local match, and you don't need to worry about getting more points for having higher local match percentages. So that's been removed. The points have been redistributed a little bit. So now we have 4 categories worth 25 points each. And we still have the point deduction based on previously approved RCTP funding awards. So that's can be up to 75 points. So the next couple slides here, we'll get into each of these criteria and talk a little bit detail about each one. So the traffic criteria, so this is very similar to what it has been previously. It's just now up to 25 points for traffic. But with this criteria, ECIA will assign a score to each application based on a traffic count to city population ratio. So we just take the traffic count on the location where you have the project and divide that by the city population, and that equals the ratio. You can see how the scores are awarded based on those ratio ranges in the table on the right. For the calculation, we use the most recent Iowa DOT traffic counts or estimates, or if the city happens to have its own traffic count that's produced by a third party, using the standard procedures approved by Federal Highway Administration, we would accept that as well. For the population, we're just going to use the most recent decennial census data for the population of the city. So that would be currently the 2020 census population of the city. So safety criteria. This is worth another 25 points. So in this criteria, we assign a score to each application, first based on a safety benefit cost ratio. So for this calculation, we use the Iowa DOT's benefit cost safety analysis worksheet that takes into account Iowa DOT crash data. It also includes a crash reduction factor from the Crash Modification Factors Clearinghouse. So the crash modification factor is just a value that is assigned, an estimated crash reduction value that's assigned based on the type of project. So there's a standard process for doing that. So basically what the benefit cost worksheet does is it takes the current number of crashes and estimates how much the proposed project will reduce those crashes going forward in the future. It assigns a dollar value to that and then compares that dollar value to the cost of the project. So the safety evaluation criteria is worth up to 20 points, and the table on the right there shows how those points are awarded based on the benefit cost ratio. There are 5 additional points in this category that the project ranking committee can award to projects that have safety benefits that go beyond those accounted for in the safety benefit cost ratio. So this was another change to the scoring criteria from last year. Previously, these additional 5 points could be awarded for safe routes to school type projects, but this definition has been expanded a little bit, and it allows the project ranking committee to award these 5 points for other types of safety projects as well, beyond those that are just related to a school. So if it is a safe route to school project and it's impacting safety for a school, they can still award these points here, but they can also award points for these types of projects for their in other areas that are not necessarily school related, but could be things like a street crossing that's near some other type of community amenity, like a library or a park or something like that. So they're still awarding these 5 points, just changing the definition of how they're awarded a little bit in this criteria. So jumping forward here, the next criteria is community support. So with those first two, the safety and traffic criteria, those were mainly awarded based on data, and those are calculations where we just plug in the numbers and we come up with points awarded based on those numbers. In the next couple categories, including this community support category, these are more subjective categories where points are awarded based on the assessment of our project ranking subcommittee. So just a little bit about the subcommittee. They are representatives from communities within the RPA area, the DMATS and RPA area, the ECIA area, but they are from communities that are not eligible to apply for the RCTP program. So what they do is that we give them all the application materials, then they meet and they assign scores to each project in some of these more subjective categories. So for the community support category, the project ranking subcommittee can award between 0 and 25 points based on the level of community support demonstrated in the application. So cities that are applying can demonstrate their community support by submitting letters of support from community members, businesses, schools, churches, or other organizations. They can also submit signed petitions, meeting minutes showing when the project was discussed, newspaper articles, or other relevant documentation. So really in this category, we will accept anything that demonstrates the community support for this project. So we have some examples of things that could be used to do that here. But if there's other items that are not listed here, you're welcome to submit those too for the ranking committee to consider. So our next category is existing conditions. This is worth 25 points in this category. So the committee here can award between 0 and 25 points in the existing conditions category based on the conditions of the existing infrastructure and project area. So the committee will also consider in this category how effective the proposed project will be in addressing the deficiencies in the existing infrastructure. So what that means is that the committee is going to be taking a look at the information that's submitted. They're going to take a look at the existing conditions and then compare that to what the project is, and then award points based on that. So in some cases, there have been projects submitted in the past where look at the existing condition, we'll look at photos of the roadway, for example, and they'll show that it appears based on the photos that the base of the roadway is completely failed. And if the proposed project is something like a reconstruction, that would be most likely it would address the issues in the roadway. But if it's something just like a crack sealing project or patching some potholes or something like that, the committee may take a second look at that and consider is this project really going to address the underlying issue of this roadway, and award points based on that. So applicants can demonstrate existing conditions through photographs. That's usually the most common way that cities will demonstrate this is just going out, taking pictures of the roadway, and the committee will take a look at them based on that. You could also have an engineer's evaluation. This is not something that's required, but in some cases, cities will have it where they have an engineer that has evaluated, and they'll submit their evaluation as part of this, or any other relevant documentation. So like the previous category, existing conditions is similar, where if you have any other documentation that's showing the existing conditions of the roadway, the committee will consider that as well in this particular category. So that is the existing conditions. I guess one other thing that I will mention while we're talking about the steering committee awarding points, the way that we typically do this with the steering committee is all the members will review the applications ahead of time. They will submit their scores, and then we take all the scores, average those scores, and that becomes the final score for the program. So it's based on an average of what the committee members have awarded individually. We average those out, and that becomes the final score for the application. So point deduction based on previously approved RCTP funding. So this is something that's applied and intended to help make sure that funding is not awarded to the same communities every year. So if cities have received RCTP funding in the past, their application will have a score deduction applied based on how recently that award was provided. So if the funding was just awarded last year in the last round of RCTP, they'll have 75 points deducted. 2 years ago, 50 points. 3 years ago, 25. 4 years ago, 0. And then by the 5th year, there'll be no deduction applied to the score after that. So this has remained unchanged. It's the same deduction that we have been using in past years. All right, so we are now at the point where we'll do the online questionnaire demonstration. So I'm going to stop sharing my presentation here. Gonna go ahead and share just my other screen here. All right, so I think everybody should be seeing my screen. That's looks like our ETIA transportation website page. And so this is what our website looks like when you come to the main page. And so to find the information about the RCTP grants, what you'll do is you'll come up here on the top bar where it says grants/RFPs. And under that, you can navigate to the Rural County Transportation Program, or RCTP. So you click on that. Can everybody see this as I'm going through on my screen here? All right, I'm assuming everybody can see this. If you can't, let me know. So this is our RCTP program page. If I scroll down here, we'll just take a look at the information that's here available on the page. First is just an overview of the program. Next is our FY 2026 program guidelines. So each county has its own guidelines document that you can access by clicking on guidelines here in the hyperlink. There's also a link here to the NOFO, or the Notice of Funding Opportunity. So you can click on either one of those, and those will bring those up here. So I can just click on the Clinton County guidelines. But in these guidelines documents, this kind of spells out everything we're going through here in this training in a little more detail. And so there's a lot of information in here, including instructions for what needs to be submitted as part of the application, and then also the important dates, deadlines. Again, that March 20th, 2025 deadline, 5 p.m. is kind of what we're the key deadline at this point for submitting applications. So back to the webpage. Right here to apply, this is the link to the online questionnaire. We'll go through that in a little bit here, but I'm just going to go through the rest of the information first. Next, we have some sample documents. So if you want the sample resolution, so for the priority project resolution and the authorization to apply resolution, those are available here. If I can show those for help. So those will be downloaded as a Word document, but those are available here. The sample funding agreement as well. So the funding agreement doesn't come into play until the funds are awarded. So this is just the agreement that will be signed between the city and the county once a grant award has been awarded through the RCTP program. So at this point, we don't need to worry about this as part of the application process, but that comes into play later on down the line if you're awarded a grant. So training, this is just information about the training session we're having right now. We will be posting the presentation slides and also a video recording of this presentation in this location after we're done here today. RCTP history, there's a document you can click on here and get, and this just shows the history of the program in each county, what cities have been funded, going all the way back to our first round of RCTP funding in FY 2019. The final thing we have here on the webpage is the completed FY 2025 funding cycle memos. So this just summarizes last year's funding round, what projects were funded, and the information that was provided to the Board of Supervisors, including the final rankings of each project and that sort of thing summarized in each of those memos there. So I'm going to go back up here to the questionnaire. So when you get ready to apply, you would click on this link here, and that will open the online questionnaire. So the questionnaire looks like this. It's basically just an online survey form. And what you will do is you'll enter in the name of your city, the location of the project, a summary of why your community needs this project. I think it allows you to go up to 1,000 words. The project timeline. So when we're looking for a timeline here, we're just looking for something, a rough start and end date, usually by month. So if you're planning on implementing this in the summer of next year, say, so you get the funds awarded in June, you're going to construct it, starting in the next construction season. We just like to know that. If you do get an RCTP grant, you do have 2 years to spend the funding. But at this point, we just want to know, what the plans are for implementing the project. So project cost. So this is where you'll put in your local contribution. So that must be at least 20% of the total project cost. How much funding you're requesting through the RCTP program, and then the total cost. So this total cost should be the sum of the local contribution and your RCTP request here. Moving down here, we have contact information. So we just need to enter the name of the contact person. So name, title, address, phone number, and then an email address of the contact person for this project. So this doesn't necessarily need to be the contact person that's submitting this now, but it'll be the person that we communicate with about the project going forward. The next section here is for upload of documents and photos. So the way this survey form works is that you can basically drag and drop any files into these little boxes here under each of these categories, and then when you hit submit, those files will be uploaded to us. We like to use this questionnaire form as the way that we collect these files, just because sometimes email can be a little bit tricky and things don't always go through. We've been using this system for the last couple of years, and we've had pretty good luck with it. And so everything usually goes through without a problem. There are some limitations on the file size and that sort of thing. But if it doesn't go through and it doesn't work, it should give you a notice that it didn't work. But if you do experience any problems with uploading files through this system, you can always contact us and let us know, and we can figure something out as well if we have to. So here we have categories for different documents that need to be uploaded. The first one here is our authorization to apply resolution. Next is the priority project resolution. Next is the cost estimate document. So with the cost estimate, we're usually looking for something, some sort of documentation from a third party. So an engineer estimate would work, but also just a quote from a contractor that includes the cost of the project would be acceptable here as well. Photos, those can be uploaded here. So you can just drag and drop up to 10 files at a time in the photo category. And then your other supporting documents. So things like your letters of support, petitions, that sort of thing, that can all be uploaded here. So once you have everything ready to go, you can just go ahead and click submit, and that will upload everything to us. So when you do that, there should be an email that gets automatically generated and gets sent to you and to myself, Dylan, and Jack. So we should all get notified that there was a submittal that came through, and then also the email will include a summary of everything that was submitted. So one thing that I should also point out about this form is that there are two questions that are required to be filled in every time. The rest are optional. So the first one is the email address field. That needs to be filled in, mainly because this is going to be the email address where that confirmation email gets sent to. So if you enter your email address in here, you should get that email confirming that there was a submission made. The other required field in this questionnaire is the name of the city. So this just helps us keep track of what submissions go for which city. So you just have to make sure you enter the name of the city each time. If you don't enter it, it is required, and it will notify you that it's not been filled in, and you need to fill that in. So the other thing with this form is that it can be submitted multiple times. So you don't have to have all of your information ready and lined up to submit. You can submit information you have now and add additional information later on. If something changes with your project and you need to resubmit something, you can do that as well. You may want to send us a note and just make sure that we are using the correct information as part of your application. So, if something changes with your cost estimate, we will assume that the most recent one submitted is the one that we'll need to go with, but it can always help if you just let us know which one you want us to use. And if we have questions, we will reach out and ask you if we need to. So I think that is the questionnaire. I think one last thing I'll go through are these sample resolutions. So just to talk a little bit about the resolution and what each one is for. So can everybody see? I just brought up the Word document here on my screen. Can everybody see that? All right, I'm assuming everybody can see this here, but just let me know if you can't. But so the sample project resolution. So this resolution, the intent here is we want to make sure that communities are doing proper work up front and planning ahead for your projects. So the resolution here, just what we want to have you do is to have the city adopt a resolution with the name of the city's potential projects that you'd be looking at implementing over the next 3 years.
I forgot about my meeting.
And applying. Oh,
it started at 11. I'm back in.
Sorry, was there a question?
Oops.
Oh, no worries. So this resolution, we'd be looking at listing the projects that the city would be looking at implementing over the next 3 years and potentially applying for RCTP funding for. So our only main requirement here, you have multiple projects listed, but the main thing is we just need to have the project that you're currently applying for listed in this resolution. So this is the template that we use for that resolution here. The next resolution is the authorization to apply. So this one is just a resolution that's adopted by the City Council that's authorizing the submission of the RCTP grant and is also committing the city to their local match portion of the project. So there's several blanks that are highlighted here. You just go ahead and fill those in and then have the City Council adopt this and submit it prior to the deadline for application submittals. So those are the resolutions. And with that, I believe we've covered everything we wanted to cover today. I am just going to switch back here to my presentation. Because the last slide we have here on the presentation is just the contact information. So again, we will be posting this presentation online, both in slide and video form. But if you do have any questions later on, you can always reach out to us. So there's our contact information there on ours. And you can contact any one of us. We'll figure out a response to your question and get back to you as soon as we can. But with that, I think that's everything that I had planned for the presentation today. And so I will open things up for any comments or questions that anybody on the call may have.
Dan, can you make those sample resolutions available, or can you email them to us?
Yeah, so those are available to download right from our project website. So if you go back to the web page, scroll down under sample documents, and they're listed on the hyperlink there under sample resolutions. You can just click and download them from there.
On that page? Oh, sample documents. Oh, I see. Okay. Never mind.
Yep. So they should be there and ready to go.
Feed a man to fish, teach a man to fish. There you go.
There you go. All right. Anything else? Any other questions before we go ahead and wrap up for today? All right. Well, hearing none at this point, if you do think of anything later on, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. We'll get back to you with more information. But with that, I think we'll go ahead and end our session for today. And I'll just thank everybody for attending and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.